everybody. Thank you all for joining us at Aerospike Summit 2021. Hope you've all had a great time and have learned a lot and gotten a lot of value out of the sessions that you've already attended. My name is Dave Klock, and I am the VP of Global Channel Sales here at Aerospike. I have the pleasure of introducing today our strategic partner, HPE, and we're delighted to have today Sorin and Nicole Fisk from the AI Strategy and Solutions Group from HPE. Sorin is the VP and fellow, and Nicole is the AI Partner Solutions Lead from this group. Good way to think about this group is sort of bringing the think tank to the taxi rank. They work on and develop avant-garde architectures and end-to-end data solutions, bringing that all the way to solutions that can be used at customer installations. And we're delighted to have them today talk about future-proofing your architecture, AI at any scale with HPE and Aerospike. Take it away, Sorin.
Good afternoon and good morning, everybody, depending when you are in the world, and welcome to the Aerospike Summit. Today, we are going to present or to show you how are we actually future-proofing an AI architecture and how HPE is working together with Aerospike in order to deliver that to you, to our customers. Today, I'm joined in the session by my colleague, Nicole Fisk. Personally, I'm Sorin and I lead a group which is called the Artificial Intelligence Strategy and Solutions Group at HPE. Nicole is currently leading our partner solutions. And without any further ado, let's actually jump in. If you're thinking about HPE, we are probably one of the biggest HPC company in the world, right? And if you're actually thinking about our story, then basically we have the following to think about. First, we want to start, what are the challenges today? Obviously, everybody talks about the massive data growth, especially in AI, but not only, across the various workloads and industries. The second topic is that in order to analyze this data, actually people have been building bigger and bigger models in HPC, in AI, in analytics, and so on and so forth. The bigger the data, the more complex the models that are actually building. Also, not only we are doing that, we are building larger models, but also we are building more and more complex algorithms, a new one as well. We're not only extending whatever exists, but we're actually looking at creating new algorithms in order to simplify our pipelines, our workloads, and so on and so forth. At HPE, how do we look at that? We're basically trying to figure out how can we use the existing technologies that we are developing, like exascale technologies. If you move to the next slide, like exascale era technologies, how do we build those together in order to bring you, our customers, differentiated solutions, but also which innovations do we need to look at from an AI perspective? If I'm looking at the challenges on the top, massive data growth, larger models, and new algorithm, artificial intelligence actually brings a new one. I actually see all of this whenever I'm thinking of building and creating a model. What happens in artificial intelligence is that it is not only about the data center. I then need to take this model and move it onto the edge. And this is why when you're thinking about AI, you're thinking about a journey. Everything starts at the edge where the data is generated. It then ends up in the data center where the data is actually transformed into a model, and then it goes back onto the edge. Let's see how this looks like. If you can move to the next slide, please, Nicole. So AI is an end-to-end pipeline. It has 3 stops. In some cases only 2, in some cases only 1. But generically speaking, it does have 3 stops. It is the edge, as I was saying earlier, where data is generated and the real-time decisions are made. It is the near edge where the data is aggregated. And in some cases, you run something which is called decision support. And then it is the core where basically models are actually taking life. So then basically the data is generated at the core. It moves to the near edge where it's being aggregated. It goes back in the data center. As I was saying earlier, here scientists are spending a lot of time to transform this data into models that later on are brought back either at the near edge or down to the edge, and they are run there. So it is basically an endless loop. that is, apologies, that needs to go over and over and over again. What are the intersections of AI and infrastructure? It has various intersection points. At the edge, in very small edge devices where we need to run our models and take real-time decisions. At the near edge, where basically the intersection are with either smaller or larger devices, but still outside of the data center. So it is critical here also to be able to run really quick analytics and also to be able to quickly bring everything together. And the other intersection point is in the data center, where you definitely need to run things at scale. You need to be able to train at scale. You need to be able to optimize at scale, and so on and so forth. For HPE, at scale is really important, not only because of our HPC heritage, being the biggest HPC company in the world, but also because of our edge heritage, meaning the ability to actually deploy, monitor, and manage AI at the edge at scale, but also run real insights at scale is critical for us. So this is why we believe in insights on demand at any scale. Now, it sounds really like a marketware, but let me take you through one of my favorite examples from the customer perspective, autonomous driving. Everybody believes that in about, let's say, 5 to 10 years from now, we're actually going to have autonomous driving vehicles. My son currently today is 7 years old. I truly believe that working together with some of the biggest companies in the world, I will definitely work towards not allowing him to have a driving license. How do we do that? Basically, we are working with these very big manufacturing companies or very small startups at a very complex problem. You're actually going to have all of these cars in the street gathering data. And these are called actually test cars. So what these cars are doing, they are going across in various cities around the globe to actually gather data with all types of sensors on the car, from ultrasound to radar to cameras to lidars, or in some cases you see a very big booth on the trunk on the top of the car, which is called the ground truth booth, that basically has the same type of sensor as around the car, but very high resolution. So you actually have about 24 sensors on the car. Now, you might ask yourself, so why do I gather the data? I gather the data because what I want to achieve in the end is to give the car the ability to drive on its own. And I'm doing that by mapping whatever the car sees with how the driver behaves. And this amounts to huge quantities of data. Basically, all the sensors on average are generating about 20 gigabits per second. And what we are looking at for one car is about 72 terabytes. What you end up in the end is a total shift per car of about 5 petabytes. If you're looking at how much data do I need in order to build this model, is about 200 petabytes. It's a lot of data. And this is just from the storage perspective. Then obviously you have a more difficult problem. How do I run the compute? Where do I run them? Do I run them at the edge, at the near edge, in the data center? How do I train the models? So it's suddenly a very complex problem. But then you might think, that, is this enough? Why do I need to think about, for example, real-time solutions here? Well, there is an issue. Because what you're actually seeing now on the screen is not everything that autonomous driving is about. If you move to the next slide, Nicole, please. What we are looking at is the whole ecosystem, which is very complex around building an autonomous vehicle, which starts with data ingestion, data logging, shipping, data lakes, infrastructure. How do I access this infrastructure? The motors themselves, simulation, manufacturing process, communication. How do I manage the fleet? And finally, security. So I have a lot of other processes that are generating data when building an autonomous driving car, not the car in itself. How do I take care of everything? How do I bring this together in such a way to give our customers the power to use analytics on everything? Imagine if you manage to correlate what the car produces with how the car is built, but also what are the underlying processes that drove there, suddenly becomes very powerful. So this is why we build for customers end-to-end pipelines. If you move to the next slide, Nicole, please. And this is what I actually mean by that. We need to be able to bring technologies together from the moment we insert the data from sensor, payments, orders, mobile, or whatever other type of data you want, up to the moment I'm actually looking at analyzing what my models did. And in order to do that, we need powerful technologies to ingest the data, to do stream processing, to save the data and to run it real time, to run analytics and so on and so forth. And in order to do that, we need to work with the customer's challenges, and we need to partner as well. We need the best partner ecosystem that allows us to take our customers to that journey. But first, let's actually look at some of the customer's challenges when we're actually building such a pipeline. Nicole, please take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is really an exciting time to be a technology provider in AI, I want to start by saying. And there are so many really impactful projects going on, some of which you may already be working on. But as Sorin mentioned, there are some challenges that are keeping us as an industry from getting to that next level. So according to Gartner, a Gartner study, 80 to 85% of enterprises are running into the last mile problem with regard to machine learning model deployment and management. And 73% of enterprises fail to deploy their projects into production. And the reason those projects fail have to do with little with data science and a lot with what I'm going to call getting back to the basics. So what that means is customers are able to get started with AI, but they're not realizing the value they were hoping to get out of AI. So it seems we've been talking about AI for a long time now, but that stat shows that as an industry, we still haven't connected all the dots. Early adopters in the industry have been racing to prove that AI can solve important problems, and they've done that. And now it's time to kind of slow down a bit and get back to those basics. Machine learning is based on complex statistical mathematics, but the reason organizations are not getting from POC to production is much simpler, or are much simpler. So we've categorized the main challenges into 4 main areas: identifying the right use case, setting a strategy for your AI project from the beginning, a data strategy from the beginning, knowing where to get started with experimentation, and bridging the gap from POC to production. All right, so identifying the right use case. You've got to get the right people involved early in this decision. And we're seeing that this is not happening early enough. So this needs to be based on providing enough, your use case that you choose needs to be based on providing enough value to the business to justify the endeavor. So you need the line of business involved in this decision. They know the business drivers, they know where they're going, and they know how to determine the value of a use case going into production versus the cost it takes to get there. But you need data science experience and your IT teams involved, because in order to have a clear path to a successful AI deployment, it's critical to know how much clean data you have, the type of data you have access to, the location of your data, and whether you have the representative data needed to solve your specific business problem. So these questions can't usually be answered by the line of business, so you need all teams involved. It's important to get those teams and the right skills involved early in that ideation phase of your AI project in order to understand your organization's data and then how it can be applied to your business goals, as well as get all the buy-in you need upfront for funding down the road. And that becomes a really important point as well. You want all those folks understanding and knowing what the business problem is, what you're planning to solve, and then how you're going to solve it. So the second challenge is setting a data strategy for your AI project from the beginning. What this means is data must be considered at every stage of the AI journey, from identifying use case to managing the AI model in production. Often organizations experimenting with AI don't optimize their IT infrastructure for AI, but instead end up piecemealing together some compute and storage that will work for the time being and for that POC. This gets expensive, it's complicated, and it's one of the main reasons customers are currently struggling to get their POCs into production. The industry is recognizing that there is a need for architectural rethinking of AI projects from the outset for that reason. This can sometimes feel like a chicken or the egg situation. How do I optimize my infrastructure for an AI use case that I haven't identified yet, or I'm not sure will be fruitful? But laying out that data strategy from the beginning doesn't have to be about knowing all of the answers before you start, but rather knowing all the questions before you start and then answering them as they become relevant. So the third challenge is getting started with AI, knowing where to get started with AI. So that's becoming a very important step. As I mentioned in the beginning, the industry has been racing to prove AI can provide the value it promised. Innovations in applications that make it easier to experiment with AI launched us forward, but the concept of data gravity makes the location of your data one of the key elements to successfully operationalizing an ML model. So in a POC, data gravity and the cost of moving data from your on-prem environment to or from the cloud, for example, is fairly low. But for a production environment, having data in the cloud and your AI cluster on premise results in high costs of data movement, which as you scale gets really exacerbated. So if you store your data in the cloud, this forces the compute to the cloud as well, and vice versa. So it's very easy and simple to do a POC in a cloud environment with limited curated sample data, or even in an isolated on-prem POC or sandbox. But when you think about scaling beyond that data, some questions to ask are, is this sample data representative of the data needed to run this model in production? Do I have access to all the data, or are they in disparate systems? How fast does my data come in, and can this environment support that now and in the future as requirements change, models change, and maybe your data ingest grows? So the fourth challenge is bridging the gap from a successful POC to successfully deploying it in production. So once you've gone through a POC, you've proven that your use case will bring significant business value, that you have the data required, and that AI is the best tool available to solve it. What needs to happen now to get it into production and monitor it over time? So this goes back to Sorin's image of our full data pipeline. It's not easy to build and utilize an end-to-end pipeline, a data pipeline on your own. So partnering with a company that's investing in that end-to-end pipeline is a great way to improve your chances to be successful getting from POC to production. So HPE finds partnerships to be a very large strength of ours, especially when it comes to AI. HPE does over half of its business with partners. Now, that differs in types of partners. That might be partners that OEM partners, large software companies, systems integrators, channel partners, but independent software vendors as well, like Aerospike. So we are an infrastructure company at our core. We are now able to provide services across our entire portfolio. And as Sorin mentioned, we can provide your infrastructure and services wherever you need it, wherever your data is, from the edge to the core to the cloud, and you can consume it in however you need to consume it that makes sense for your business. We are not a company building applications, generally speaking, especially when it comes to AI. So our partnerships are extremely important to us. So what we want to do with AI is make sure that we're able to be flexible in this ecosystem. And it kind of parallels the open source ecosystem as well, right? We want to share information, and we want to make sure that we are scouring that landscape of AI technologies and making sure that we're able to pull in the best of breed technologies for the applications and support it on our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is all over the world in many data centers, large corporations, small corporations, mid-size. HPE is one of the largest providers, if not the largest provider of IT infrastructure in the market today. So being able to run these AI applications on our infrastructure, which exists in most of these data centers, is extremely important to us. So what you see here is on the left-hand side is HPE Pathfinder. That is our investment arm, where they're spending completely focused on startup companies that can provide us new technology, and that includes AI. We've got our technology partner program, where we've got ISVs signing up with us to build solutions, which I'll talk to you about with Aerospike in just a second, to build solutions with us that are specifically targeted to industry and business drivers, as opposed to directed at functionality or the IT level. And we've got a team called Accelerate AI. And that's really exciting, because we're looking at specifically small AI companies, as well as AI startups, working closely with HPE Pathfinder, as well as existing partnerships that we've had for a while, and looking at something else that keeps us flexible, which is ASICs and new accelerators coming on the market. So as AI grows and the ecosystem begins to build, we have the unique ability to make sure that the applications that we're bringing in are coming from those best of breed partners. We don't want to be locked in, and we want to make sure that we're keeping pace with the market and with our customers and what they need from an AI perspective. So Aerospike is one of those best of breed partners. We have had a major investment in Aerospike over the past 3+ years. As you can see here, we've also collaborated with Intel and Aerospike on the solution that we've created and optimizations that we have worked on over the past 3 years, and Intel has been a fantastic partner in this. So one of our main differentiators is scale. And we're not just talking about being able to build massive supercomputers that are solving universe scale problems, which they are, even as we speak. But with Aerospike, we're specifically talking about real life scaling, addressing the challenges that everyday companies are having when they try to scale AI applications once they're in production, but also moving just from POC to production, as we discussed before. So what allows us to do this with Aerospike is Aerospike's hybrid memory architecture and HPE Persistent Memory, which is based on Intel Optane technology. And we've gotten great, we've had great success with combining our technologies. We've got benchmarks and white papers to share with you all on what we've been able to do in that area. And as you can see here, not only are we looking at SLAs and database, reducing database footprint, and performance just from a performance perspective, but also from a business perspective, right? So you can see here that this is particularly from a banking perspective, but we reducing percent of loss to fraud. We're tracking how the technologies together are impacting your actual business. And that's what we want to focus on moving forward from an AI perspective. It's really important as we talk to customers, not to go in talking about just the technology, which is already proven, but to talk about how we understand your business and getting you from POC to production from an AI perspective. And that's really important to us. So we are, one of the case studies that I would like to highlight here is a joint customer that we had, a major fintech payment solutions provider. This was a really great joint customer that we've got. We have a lot of other examples of how we can, from a benchmarking perspective, of what we can do, but I wanted to point this out here. So just together in an average size customer, and as you grow, these benefits actually increase, but we increase transactions per second by 4,000%, achieve 10 to 20 millisecond payment processing window, which is something that they were not able to achieve prior. And with a 66% reduction in database cluster node count, while maintaining 4 nines or getting them to 4 nines of uptime. So not only are we scaling, and not only do we have the performance, but also we're doing this at a low TCO, total cost of ownership. And that's what really kind of brings home this partnership. All right, so I really appreciate you all being here and taking this time with us. And you can see our booth, and we'll be there to answer all questions that you might have. Thank you.
Sorin, Nicole, thanks very much for that insightful presentation and also for your wonderful ongoing support of the HPE Aerospike partnership. And of course, HPE's gold level sponsorship of this year's summit event. Your talk included good thought leadership and forward thinking while including guidance at the practical level. So it's a really nice job. Sorin, I'm not sure how your son will feel about not getting his driver's license when he comes of age for that, but that's a challenge for another day. We do have a question here, and it's about digital twinning. And have you seen the use of digital twinning to test, validate, expedite AI platforms?
So thank you, Dave, and thank you for organizing this magnificent event. And let me just dive in the question because I think we are up on time, close up on time. So obviously, digital twinning is not something new, right? I mean, people have actually tried to reproduce into engineering and with engineering models, physical products, and then try a bit more to understand how certain changes in features are actually affecting the real thing. Nowadays, we are actually with AI, we are seeing with AI, big data, advanced analytics, and so on and so forth, we're actually seeing a revigorating of the digital twin, especially in manufacturing, healthcare, but also we've even seen some other very big modeling, right, including a simulation with their forecast and so on and so forth. But the biggest use it is in manufacturing, and we have actually had projects with factories around the globe where we are actually looking at how they can use AI and to actually give virtual sensors and virtual engineering a lot more intelligence in such a way that you're actually understanding AI, you're able to predict within a simulation, so to speak, what will actually happen to the real product. We've seen this across in supply chains. We've seen this across in autonomous driving. We've seen this across in oil and gas and so on and so forth. So people are actually using not only the AI to unshackle the IoT, they are actually using AI to unshackle the virtual sensors and the virtual IoT to actually design better products. So AI platforms are here to actually enhance, and I hope that this was the way the question was asked, to actually enhance the way we're actually building the digital twins. And again, I'm happy to go a lot more in detail with whoever asked the question. So please just reach out to us, and we'll be happy to give you some examples and to walk you through some of our customer stories around that. But yes, that's a very, very good question, because AI is here to actually enhance the smart manufacturing, smart healthcare, and so on and so forth. And digital twins are just one way to do it.
Excellent.
Nicole, anything you want to add? If not, let's move to the next question.
That was great. We're usually seeing it with AI with computer-aided design, and digital twins on the digital side often incorporate that. So that's where we're seeing it, but mostly they've been trying to tackle the automation piece of digital twins today. There's also another concept of digital thread, which is actually seeing the entire system all the way from the manufacturing floor up to the business and being able to track that whole thread. So that's what I would say.
Great question. Great answer. Thank you so much. So, we've got many customers and partners here today that are using or are planning to use Aerospike database for AI ML for their apps in fraud prevention, payment processing, cybersecurity, IoT, and more. Everyone wants to know what their peers are doing in AI. They want to know, in your interaction with HPE customers around the globe, what have you seen in early successes around any best practices that you can share?
All right, so I'll quickly take that. All right, so I mean, we are often asked by our customers, if you go in certain verticals, right, when you're actually in front of customers and you're trying you're starting having a discussion about their journey and how can you help, the first question normally is, what have you seen similarly to my problem, right? And we've heard this in manufacturing, we've heard healthcare, I've heard this in my favorite sport for one. So you're actually hearing that a lot. What are the other guys doing, and so on and so forth. But what I've discovered is that we do not actually have a recipe of success in the sense to say, okay, this is what your competitors are doing, you should actually move in the same direction, because it depends a lot what is their readiness to actually adopt AI, what is their data strategy, how are they actually organizing the various groups inside the company, and so on and so forth. But if you're actually looking from the journey perspective and where they are, and also then you can at least try to see recipes of success, right? So the first one, let me try to take it from the very beginning, from the infrastructure perspective. From the infrastructure, the most successful projects that I've seen across the various verticals is the one that are done jointly by us or the vendor itself, okay, and the customer. So if you want to get the best optimized infrastructure for your problem, obviously you need to go up and start with the workflow. Think of the workflow, what would be the best optimized storage, compute, network, and so on and so forth for that special AI workflow, ML workflow, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the first thing. If you're actually thinking, but these customers truly need to understand, they really understand AI, they understand what they want to do. And so if you're moving then to the customers that have actually started, but they don't know where to take this, is ask for help. Meaning that, find the right partner that is able to deliver to you services, find the right partner but actually the reproducibility of your problem across the spectrum. So get help, get advisory, 100%. If the customers didn't actually start and they are just scratching their heads trying to understand, where do you want to take AI, the best thing that we've seen is buy an end-to-end. Buy the best of breed partners, buy an end-to-end solution, and make sure that that actually works. But across the floor, no matter in which situation you are, make sure that what you're actually getting from the optimized infrastructure, services, or simply an end-to-end solution, make sure that it actually makes sense for your company. Make sure that you're actually able to integrate all of those things within your own business processes. And finally, just get started. No matter where you are in the journey, get started. Ask tomorrow for an end-to-end solution. Ask for help as well from an advisory company, HPE or whoever else. And also, if you want to do this right, make sure that you're actually harnessing the best price performance per watt or per power, whatever other else from your infrastructure. So it depends, but most importantly, get started.
Great advice, and hopefully a lot of people will be getting started right after this summit. So thanks for that insight. It looks like we're up against our allotted time now. Thanks again, Sorin, Nicole, for your time and your thoughtful presentation and your answers to these questions. Again, if anyone has further questions, we can document those here after the session, and I know that Sorin and Nicole will be happy to get back to you on anything. And for now, let's make way for happy hour. We look forward to seeing everyone at the Cinco de Mayo meetup with Fabio Vivani. Adios.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Stay well. Bye.